All right, there we go. So now we are recording. So as I said, if you want to turn your cameras off, now's a good time, or blur your background. So today we're talking about tracking. And when I say tracking, we're talking about your art catalogue. So the pieces of art that you've got for sale and who you've sold them to, what price you've sold them for, any other fees you need to take into account. And on the spreadsheet that I've put the link to in the Facebook group, there is, it's set up for Etsy, but I'm going to show you how to change that. And so you all know the fees that you pay. So I've chosen Etsy, and I've kind of tried to remember what the fees were. It's some time since I've used Etsy. So the information that is in my spreadsheet is completely made up. All right. So by all means, go change it. And you'll know that in Etsy, you can go and get your fees from the fees. I think it's in your finance tab, and you'll see the fees that you've paid on every transaction. Now there's tax, there's a variety of taxes. There's also your Etsy fees. So just make sure that you account for all of those so that it gives you the true picture. But anyway, I am going to share my screen with you, and you will see this. Can you see my Excel spreadsheet there?
Yes.
Yep, you've got it? Okay, great. So when it first comes up, and I've actually left it like this to show you, when you first open it up, you get this yellow tab across the top that says Protective View. Now, it will take some time for it to come up, but all you need to do is go Enable Editing. So click on Enable Editing, and now, hang on, it stopped sharing. Let me come back. Can you see that now still? Can someone just jump off mute and let me know if you can see that screen share?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. That's great.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've got our spreadsheet open. And literally, this is just move your mouse and click in each square. Now, I've set this spreadsheet up. As you can see here, it's got some sums, which means it's got some automatic formulas in there, which will do some calculations for you. What I did with this spreadsheet when I set it up, I thought, what do I want to track? And how am I going to do that? And how can I do that as easily as possible? Plus, I also want to know who I've sold my art to. So this sheet served as, or the spreadsheet served as, a couple of business tools for me. One as an art catalogue. So you can see I've got my catalogue number in this line here that I've highlighted. So catalogue number or SKU number. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a number that Etsy also provides you. So if you want to link back to that number, that's it there. Otherwise, just give it a catalogue number, something that means something to you. So you can see there, I've actually based mine on date, 017722 for piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. So essentially, it's the third piece of July 2022. That is kind of how that series of numbers works. I noted here whether it was paper or canvas. These were all paper, but if it was canvas, you would literally take your mouse, click it in there and type, let me get my caps lock off, canvas, all right? You'll notice once you type that once, if you go click in the line below and push C, it will automatically come up with canvas, or P. Actually, I've got lines above, so paper, click P, and it will automatically come up. Okay, so let me just take that out. Another thing we can do, and I'm going to do, I've actually already done it. See the little drop down arrow here? Actually, let me just put in a couple of canvases here so we can actually see what's going to happen. Excuse me. Okay, this little drop down arrow here, if I wanted to see all of the pieces that I've sold only on paper, and imagine that this list was full, I can click on this little down arrow here. So click on it, come down to the bottom, unselect all, and just select paper. It's going to only give me the paper pieces. So you can imagine how useful that would be once your sheet is full and you've sold a heap of art. If you wanted to see, where did I make my most money? What was the most popular size? Was it paper? Was it canvas? You can come back in here and have a look. Canvas isn't, I've not got any on canvas, but you can see there's the 2 canvases I just typed in. Or again, to go back to your whole sheet, just select all and everything appears there. All right, so that's a really fun tool. You can do that on any of these. So likewise, if you've got various art sizes, I've only got one size there, but you can imagine if you had others, you could see what was your most successful size, which is why I like tracking this information. As you all know, I love data, so it gives you an idea about what's selling, what's working, where your biggest profit margin is, and also what sizes people like buying from you. All right, so we've got paper or canvas, we've got your catalogue number, we've got the painting name. So I just put in a series of ladies' names that I had previously. So, you know, it could be cherry blossoms in spring or cherry blossoms on James Street. You know, it could be whatever your painting name is, pop it in. And then the artwork size. So I was paper, my size was A4 and it was matted to 11 by 14. So I just kept a track of that, because if ever I'm thinking, oh, if I want to paint A4, what size do I need to get my mats? I can look here and I know exactly straight away. Here's my buyer's name. Now, I've not kept any other information about the buyer, but if you wanted to, you could keep their email address, all right? But you can't use that email address unless they've given you permission to do so. So I've not put it in, but if you wanted to, I'm going to show you how to do that. So again, this is Excel. You come up and just with your mouse that you've got here that you're moving around, click on here. And what we can do is we are going to insert a row to the left of this column. So it sits in between column E. So it's going to sit in between this one and this one. So you could either go in here, insert it to the right, but I like going in here and I'm going to insert. So you come here and you right click on insert, and there's your new column right there. So now we can just call that email. So can you see how easy Excel is? So let's go Mary at 123.com. Okay. Whatever. All right, and pop them down there. Now, I'm just thinking, those of you that collect email addresses when you sell your art, you could, or when you're doing a listing and you're selling a piece of art and they're giving you their email address for the PayPal invoice, on the invoice, you could almost put a note in your notes column there to say, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to add your email address so you can keep up to date with my forthcoming launches, right? Or you could do another iteration of that to say, I'm going to add you to my list of emails for upcoming launches. If you don't want to continue, please unsubscribe, all right? Now that meets legal requirements here in Australia because you're telling them you're going to add them and you're giving them an option to opt out. So that does meet our email laws. Just check yours in America. I know California, and I'm sure Alex will know these, but in California, I know that they are quite strict. They're fairly like Australia. We have very strict privacy laws. I know some of you not so much, but I just like to make sure people know what they're opting in for and that there's no surprise and you're telling them how to get out. So that would meet your requirements. I'm going to leave the email column in there just in case you want it. Okay, the date of purchase. So these were all purchased on the 1st of July 2022 in my makeup world. And you can see, you know, that's how this comes about. The 1st of July 2022, 1st of July 2022. All right. What day did I post them? So if Mary calls up and she says, I've paid for it, what date did you post it? You could either go into your tracking where you've entered the tracking details, either through PayPal, you can track when you're doing a PayPal invoice, through Etsy, obviously you can track, or let's actually add another column in here. So let's go back here and insert another column, and let's go tracking details. Now, if you don't want that there, you can take it out, but let's just stick a number in there. All right, so let's just, actually, let me just go and fix that number. So I'm just going to go and format that cell. Actually, bear with me for a minute. I'm going to do a long way down. So format that cell, and I just want it to be a number, and I don't want any decimal places, and I don't want any. Okay, there we go. All right, so now it looks a bit better. It's a number. Okay, so how much did Mary pay for this piece of art? She paid $199 US. Now, that $199 US included postage. So when I listed that piece of art for sale, it included postage and it was in US dollars. Because I work in Australian dollars, I've converted that here. Now, when I list this up, I would suggest you down arrow on column K, where you can see the green is above, left click to highlight, right click, and then you can delete that column. All right, so I will just, or the other thing you can do actually here is if you don't want a column, but you might later, you can do the same. Let me just come out. You can go up to K, left click to highlight, right click to bring up your menu, and then you can hide. So you can hide that column. All right. Then if you wanted to unhide it, so you know it's hidden because you've got HIJL. So there's no, you can come here, sit above, left hold down, drag it across so it highlights both two. So you've got your left mouse button and you're highlighting those two, then right click and unhide, and it will come back. So you can hide any of these columns if you don't want to use them, but you might, you know, or you can take them out and put them back. But I've just done this here because this then affects my calculation, because everything else after this is in Australian dollars, but I've sold my piece in US dollars. So that's my PayPal invoice number. Okay, so here's the Etsy fees. So Etsy has, so there's postage through Etsy. So postage costs through Etsy. There's an Etsy fee and tax. And then there's an Etsy fee GST. And then there is a total payments, including postage to Etsy. So these have come straight out of a finance tab. These costs here on Etsy, all right? What I've done is this cost here, if you look at it, so that equals, it equals all of these. So O2 plus N2 plus M2. So this amount here, 2675, is essentially those three columns added up equal this amount here. All right, so now I know what my total fees are that I've paid to Etsy for that piece. Then coming across, oops, I've taken it back, coming across further. So what I've got here is the Etsy payment due to me, all right? In other words, the amount that's been paid to Etsy is $285. This is the total of all of the fees that have been paid to Etsy. This is what's left, all right? And essentially, it is that your total cost minus that gives you that, all right? So it's just breaking down those costs and figuring out how much you've got left once you've sold that piece. Now, you guys know me, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to these stuff, right? So I kind of roughly go, okay, how much did the canvas cost me? If I was to buy that canvas, how much did it cost? It was a piece of paper, actually. So let me just go canvas paper cost. Actually, let's go substrate. Can I spell substrate cost? Okay, so I've used paper, so roughly 50 cents worth of paper. It's not bad. And then paint. Now, paint is a real guesstimation, right? You buy a tube of paint. How much paint have I used in that piece? I'll be honest, it's a guesstimate, right? Take a tube of paint. How many paints can you get out of it? Yeah, I don't know. I reckon the paint cost me $5. So the packaging. So where I've got package here, package cost, it is what did it cost me to buy the envelope that I'm posting that in. So I post in rigid mailers, so they're quite large rigid mailers, quite thick unbendable cardboard. They cost me $3.50 each. When I've put internal packaging in, I'm thinking things like business cards or the little postcards I've made, anything else that you might include it. I've put $1 for internal packaging. I do know some artists put $5 there, but to be honest, I made most of it. Like my business cards are cut up chaos layers and, I put $1 there. So the total cost to produce that bit is essentially this equals all of this added up together equals that. So simply my net profit when all of that is taken away, hang on, you don't want to see the weather where I am, hang on, where's it gone? Let's get rid of that. Okay, so this net profit is essentially what I've sold it for, back over here, less everything that needs to come out to it is what's left here. So at the end of every day, after everything's taken out, that is what I was left with from this collection. Now, I often will do a quick figure check. So sometimes you want to tell you want to tell Excel where to add your margins up. This little equals button here is your sum button. So I want to sum those there, and I want that amount to end there. So I click on that. I click on the little auto sum. See, it says sum. All right. Now that wants to go across that way. I don't want it to go that way. So I literally put my mouse up here. I hold it down. I run down, and you can see that it's summing W2 to W8. That's what I want. And I take it off, take my finger off that left button and push enter. Does that equal that? Yes, it does. Perfect. I can now just left button hold down, highlight both, and delete. Again, I did that here. I just wanted to check that that equaled that my sum hadn't gone off there while I was looking. So again, I literally just went. Now, if you sit here and you type in that, it's going to override what was in there previously. So equals. Oh, actually, sorry, I don't need to do equals. So here, and I want to sum. So go up and click on my auto sum. Come down the line I want to add up. You can see that it's summing Q2 to Q8. Take my finger off the left button, push enter, and that amount equals that amount there. So that's a good way just to check that Excel is adding up what you would like to add up down those columns. Likewise here, I wanted to sum across there for that one. So I wanted to tell it, don't go up, but go to the left. So I went sum. I'm going to take it off there. Come back and click on the first one. Left, drag your cursor across and push enter. And that didn't do it for me. Why not? Let me have a look. So sum, Oh, actually, you know why not? Because that's not what that sum is. Hang on. Now I need to delete that. Hang on. Let me come out. So just delete that. I've confused it. So that sum is actually not those. That sum there is what I've taken less the total cost gives me that. That's what that sum is there. Okay, so this is roughly how I kept a track of what I was selling, what it was, the catalogue number, the painting name, the artwork size, and it might be, 11 by 14 canvas, 8 by, so it might be canvas, and here you might put in here like 8 by 8. Oh, 8 by 8. Oh, hang on, get my finger off the shift. There we go, 8 by 8, right? So now, and actually let's put a couple of others. We might go 7 by 7 by 5. We might go 12 by 12. Let's do another 8 by 8. Actually, I'll get some spaces back in there. Okay. Now when I look down my art size, you can see I've got all those options there now. So I can either unselect all and go, I wonder how many 8 by 8s I sold. Let's have a look. 2. Okay, great. All right. Wonder how many 7 by 5s I sold. Click 7 by 5, unclick 8 by 8 and push OK. So doing all of the pushing with your mouse is all that left mouse button. And then when you want to, so let's just select all again and bring that back up. I'm just going to leave that there. So moving around is all clicking with your left mouse button. Bringing up your menu once you're in a cell is the right mouse button. And you can change. So those of you who've not used Excel before, you can format a cell where you've got a number. So you want the number just to be exactly as you type it. You may want decimal places or not. So if you don't, just change those decimal places down to 0 with the up and the down arrow there. You might want a currency, and you could want it to be dollar, you could want it to be, the English pound, I was just trying to find the English pound, or you might want it to be a euro. Where is all these? Have I not gone down far enough? Here we go. So here's your English pound. And, you can change it to whatever. But for the majority of us, it is the dollar symbol. So US dollars, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars. But that's certainly how you change that symbol. Now, you can have decimal places in your currency as well. So mostly, not many of us sell something for something cents, but if you did, you could have 2 decimal places. So you can see I've chosen here US dollar, I've chosen 2 decimal places. If I'd chosen none, it would just have the 1.99. But you could put the 2 decimal places if you were selling something for, say, $120.95. You could certainly put those in there. The date, you can format the date to whichever way you like to do that. So over in the date cell, let me just move here, this. You can either have it as text, which is, it will appear as you type it in, or you can change it to a date and have it in a specific date format. So if we wanted to, let's do this. If we wanted to change all of these Julys, I've gone to the first cell, I've held down my left button and I've dragged it all the way down. I've right-clicked to bring up the menu, format cells, date, and I want that date to be, I know you guys actually, I'm going to change this. I know you guys do your dates slightly different. Let me have a look. Can I find, is it under USA? Or is it under American? Here we go. All right. So you guys do your dates slightly different. So let's do that. And because I've highlighted all of those cells, oh, it's actually the way I put it in. Okay. No, did that not do it? Oh, which one did it? Hang on. Did that not do it? What have I done wrong? Let's have a look. Probably because, no. Do you know why? It's because, and I can change this if you guys want me to change it, we'll figure it out. Let me know. It's because I have free text that in. I didn't use the date formula. So what I did was I basically got these, I formatted text, and I have gone text. In other words, I want this to appear the way I type it in. I don't want Excel to change that format to look like anything else. I want it to look how I have put that in. So that's how I've done that there. What else do I need to show you? Does anybody want to come off mute and ask any questions before we move off to the next tab? Is there anything else you'd like added? Is there anything you want me to take out? What it's going to be is you guys play with this. So download it, save a copy, and play with it. And if you want help with it, let me know. If you want fields taken out and others added in and you're not sure how to do it yourself, again, shoot me a DM and I can customize it and send it back to you. Really happy to do that for you guys because it's a really interesting tool if you use it to keep a track of what you're selling, how much you're selling it for, and roughly at the end of the day, what you've made. It's actually it's a great tool to have. So feel free to come off mute if you've got any questions at that point, or you want to ask anything about Excel, and then we'll move on to income and expenses.
Ellie? Right, Beth, I think your one formula may be double counting your Etsy expenses.
My Etsy expense, and it's possible because I put this together last night.
In column Q, I think it should be either plus M, N, and O or plus or minus P, like minus, because you're adding them.
And it's possible because I put this together last night based on the one that I used to use. So I've said this equals K minus M minus N. So hang on. That equals K minus M minus N minus O.
And then you also have P, but then that'd be double counting.
Postage. Yes, because it's counting there. Okay. Right. So yes, you are right. So let's change.
More money.
Go you. Okay, hang on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, this equals, so our amount minus, which is your minus symbol on your keyboard, basically this.
Right.
So that equals that. Now what we can do is go up here, and where we've got the cell here in the bottom, you'll see my cursor changes slightly. Do you see that? So at the moment it's a plus with a white. It changes to like a small black plus. I can left arrow hold down, drag that formula down, and it changes that formula all the way down. So if I come here and go that equals K8, which is right, minus P8, which is right, equals that. So it just drags the formula down. So it is really fun. Let me just, my save is, here it is. Let me just go save that. Okay, you're right. I was double counting. There you go. That'll teach me for doing this. I was playing with it. I was populating it last night and just playing with it so I could have something populated to show you today.
The other trick, Ellie, for people that don't use Excel a lot is if you're going to go into a cell that has a formula, don't delete it, put 0, because otherwise then you have to go back and recreate the formulas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a really good tip actually. But honestly, if you're not going to stuff it up. Like if you stuff it up, you're going to message me and go, I deleted the formula, I'm not sure what it was. and I will go fix it for you, right? Or I will get you. It's actually a great opportunity to learn. So rather than getting to send it to me, I would rather jump on with you and talk you through how to fix it. Because if you can navigate your way around here, then you can see, you know, like you can see here what you've sold and what your final costs were. You can see too, if you want to go down this track, because, you know, you might actually just want to go, I don't want those, right click and delete. You know, you don't have to have those in there at all. All right. You could actually just leave it there. Yeah, so that's how I was using it, but it is fun. It's great to see particularly what's selling. Also, when you get into the mindset, and this is very telling, this is the way my brain thinks, right, is where do I make the most money? Like if I want a cash injection and I want to sell a collection of art, what is my most profitable collection? Where do I make the most? You can see that here with these figures. So, you know, when you're thinking in that line, again, you know, it's a great way, just as I'm thinking about doing a collection, what size am I going to do? What am I going to sell it for? You can come back here as long as you've kept your records and see what was your most profitable size and, you know, where did you make the most money? Likewise, when you come over to postage, you can see how much you're spending in postage. And again, go, can I do that better? Can I do that smarter? You know, for those of you, particularly when you're getting into those larger sizes, you're keeping a track of what that's costing you to post. Any other questions before we move on to the next tab?
Yeah, I would like to ask a question. I'll put my, just 1 second here. I'll put my ugly mug back on at the moment.
That's all right. I can't
you
see you because I've got my Excel spreadsheet up, but I can see that it's you talking.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, I mean, I think I know the answer, and the answer is yes, although I find this all overwhelming because I've never done it.
I wanted to record and screen record because it's like, oh my God, like, am I supposed to learn all this in 1 hour? No, you're not. Yeah. It's a tool for you to get up and play with. And we can come back and address it at another time. So don't feel overwhelmed by this. This is a tool that you can use if you want to.
I was going to say, and it would also be a good tool for, like, I haven't sold massive amounts of things yet. I've been blessed to be able to just go and find my artistic, you know, niche and do all these things. But I think just listening and watching, it would be beneficial for me to just see moving forward. Well, you know, you're spending 7 times as much in paint as you are in selling things.
The next tab is going to blow your mind.
Okay, I'll mute myself then and get ready. I'll buckle in.
Sit down, girl, get a coffee. All right. So anything else that anybody would like to ask while we're here on this tab, we can always come back to it. So, you know, let it mull over for a bit. But before I go and again, please don't be overwhelmed. This is why I like to record these sessions, because you might be at a point where you go, I don't want to do this. This is all just a bit scary. I'm not sure I want to go this far. You know, Ali's a bit over the top. This is not really for me. That's cool. But down the track, it might be for you, in which case you can go, oh yeah, Ali had that spreadsheet. Let me go find it. Then you've got the Zoom you can refer back to as well about how to use it. All right. And remember, I'm always here. So all you have to do is message me. We can jump on a Zoom together and I can get you to screen share and I can talk you through either how to personalize it for your own so that it's relevant for what you need it for. If you're not using Etsy and you're just using PayPal, again, I can do another iteration of this for you just for PayPal, and we can put those fees and things in there as well. All right, the fees change and we would just need to figure out, is the fee a percentage of the sale? And I want to say, yes, I think it is. Then what percentage is it? And we can set all of that up to automatically calculate. And I'm happy to do that for you guys as well. You just need to let me know what you want. All right. Drew, did that answer your questions?
Yes, it helped immensely. And yeah, because I don't have an Etsy shop, and I think you've convinced me that I don't want one right now, but I don't have a problem with PayPal at the moment.
Yeah,
But again, I'm just breathing, sitting
yeah,
down, going with
that's
the
a girl.
flow.
Take a breath. That's it.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
job. All right, so across the bottom, the great thing with Excel is you can add different sheets, and I'll show you how to do that. This one here says income and expenses, but you might want to track and see it's got a little plus there. Left click on the plus, and now you've got a new sheet. If you wanted to move that sheet, come down, left click, hold it down, and move it to where you want it. You can see that's it there. I'm dragging it. Can you see the little arrows moving? I want to put it in there. All right. Now I want to rename it. So at the moment it's called sheet 1. I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename, and I'm going to call this brushes I like. Okay. So now you have a whole new sheet in here with brushes that you like. So we might go, let's go, so size, shape, retailer, so where do you buy it from, the cost. Okay, so there we've got it there. So we might just go, I like a size 3 and it's flat, and I buy it from Michael's and it costs me $4.95. Okay, so there you've got it. So the other thing is we can come up now. You can see, you know, my brain, you know, this will drive me crazy. They don't all match up. So again, I've got my arrow, my cursor, you can see it moving on the screen. If I go up and put it so it changes to a down arrow and hold it on the A, so column A, and I hold my left down and I drag that across, I've got all those cells highlighted now. I can take my finger off and I want to center it so it looks a bit better for my type A brain. I just push the center there like you would in Word. All right. And there it centers them all. If I want to go and I want to go, what flat brushes do I like? Or what, I'm going to Michael's. What do I buy at Michael's? Let's put a data sort on here. So whenever you go up onto any of the columns or the rows, you can see that cursor changes to an arrow. So go to column 1 where you've got your headings, highlight where it says column 1, so you get the green arrow on the 1, left click down and that top line will highlight. We're going to go data, filter, and what that does is it gives us those down arrows. So I'm going to go, okay, I want a size 5 and I want it round. I might get it at Hobby Lobby and it costs me $2.60. Actually, do you know what? Let's change this. Let's not just make this brushes. I'm going to rename this and I'm going to go supplies. Let's just call it supplies. All right. So I'm going to add another row in here and I'm going to go item. All right. So this item, I need to actually put the filter back on that. Oh, I've taken it off everything. Hang on, filter back on. Okay. So my item is a brush. My item here is a brush. My item here is gesso. And what size do I like? Let's go, I can't remember what your measurements are. Give me a measurement for a bottle of gesso. 8 something, how many ounces in a bottle of gesso?
32.
Thank you, 32 ounces. Shape, let's just go bottle. Retailer, let's go Michael's. And how much do you pay for? I have no idea, but let's go $16.95. Okay, all right. So here's supplies I like. Let me just save that. Okay, now this is the other cool thing about this, right? Is that, okay, I'm going to Michael's. What do I buy at Michael's when I go there? let's come here. Let's unselect all. Let's just select Michael's. This is what you've typically bought at Michael's. Likewise, if we did some, so come back in, remember to select all so it takes your filters off and you can see your whole item there. So again, you might go, where do I buy my brushes from? You can come here and sort. This is the brushes. This is what they are. You've bought that one at Michael's. You've bought that one at Hobby Lobby. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm going to Michael's. Let's have a look at what they've got. Actually, we could, you can see I'm doing this on the fly, but we could actually go and put in, another column, and let's call this one brand. So we know, okay, Liquitex. Let's call this one a Zen. Let's call this one a Zen. Okay, so you've got your brands in there now. So when you're going to let's go Michael's, because we've got a couple of Michael's in there. So you can see what brands they were, what size they were, what you've typically paid for them. So you can see, like, Excel is really fun for keeping a track of a lot of things. It is my idea of fun. I just love this stuff. I know some of you will go, oh, she's serious. I'm never going to use this in my life. But it is interesting. It is interesting when you get down to particularly tax time, if you're having to use an accountant and you're really good at keeping your receipts up, it's great to give this spreadsheet to your accountant. All right. Now, let's come back to income and expenses. So I know that your financial year is different to mine, and I wanted to confirm with you, tell me when your financial year starts and finishes.
I know, I mean, our tax time is April, but I don't know. Well, I guess January, I think.
So your
January.
financial
January
year
to
is
December.
January to December?
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think
If you're a
so.
big corporation, it's July to July, but if you're like us, it's
Yeah.
January to December.
January to December.
Thank you, Johnny.
So you, when you typically track your receipts, you track January to December. Yeah?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I will save another version of this and we'll call it US financial year. All right. So don't do anything at the moment. I will change this for you. And I'll call it US financial year. So when you go into it, this will be January 2023. All right. So at the moment, it's July 2022, because that's just the exercise that I'm doing. But it will be January 2023. Actually, July 22. Okay. So what is this? So this is income and expenses. So this is for July. This is my expenses here and the cost. And then this is the income and the amount. All right. So I thought about this. In my sheet now, I have this amount pulling from the first sheet. But because you're going to use that as a catalogue, I didn't want to confuse you. So I've just left it where you go. So this amount here comes off this sheet here, and it comes off your expenses. All right, actually, it doesn't. I just made that up and I didn't check. But essentially, it would come off your income, which would be essentially here, but then you've got your fees. All right, so it would depend on what you wanted to capture. So what I've got here is postage for swaps, $13.60. I've got, can I just get you to all pop yourself back on mute for me, please? I've got paint, so I spent $102.60 on paint in July, and I bought 7 mailers, and that's the cost of them there. So how much was my art launch? That figure isn't right based on that, but let's pretend it is. That's how much I made on my art launch. So you can see I've got my outgoings here, the things that cost me money, and then I've got money in here, so where I made money through my art launch. So basically you can see that I spent that amount of money going out and that amount of money coming in. So essentially this equals that minus that. So my grand total for that month was I made $1,442, and I've got a year down here. So July, $1,442. So as that changes, and let's come across here. So 1 August 2022, is that date formatted? No. Okay, so 1st of August 2022. Actually, let me just take that year off. Okay, and what did I pay? Let's call it postage, and let's call it $22.80. And here, 1st of August, what else did I spend? Let's go another postage. Goodness me. Postage. I know my accent's bad, but seriously. Okay, so postage, let's go. And let's call this one racks. And let's go $12.10. And let's go the 20th of August. And I bought canvases. What am I doing? Come on, get out there. So, okay, and I bought canvas, and I spent $280 in canvases. All right. Now, I didn't sell anything in August. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So I didn't sell anything in August. So here's my expenses. I have no income. So I spent $314.90. I didn't have any income. So my grand total for that month is a negative $314.90. And if we just arrow back to where I've got my monthly amounts, shit, minus $314.90, you can see that my yearly total has gone down. So it's a very good way to keep a track of what you're spending and what your income is. Now, I know that there's apps that will do that. I also use QuickBooks now because, I've got other expenses and income that I need to track. But this is a great way when you're starting out just to keep a track of what you're doing. And I used to, so when I got my receipts from the art store, the post office, wherever, and I get a receipt for everything. And I just had a little, little inbox on my desk, and I had a folder in there with art, and I would just throw it in there. And then every weekend when I'm doing my planning on a Sunday, I would just grab those out and have a look and go and document what I needed to document. So excuse me. So I would just do that weekly, or you could do it monthly, or you could do it when you thought about it. But honestly, if you get into a regular habit of doing it, it becomes a much less job. Plus also you can see here, go down here and go, oh man, I need to sell some art, right? Like I'm looking at my income that I made from an art sale here and everything that it's costing me, and it's just going, if you want your art to fund itself, it's just decreasing. I need to get my act together and start selling some art. Does anybody have any questions on this sheet? Again, it's what you make it, and I will fine tune it so that it matches. I'll put two up, one that will be the original one that I had, and one that I will just change the date so it reflects the US financial year. Does anybody have any questions on this sheet?
Ellie, I have a question. It's the sheet is kind of, because of how, we all approach our business or how we're doing it. And obviously there's a lot of us who are so green at this as I look at this. But do you think that, do you think in terms of when you're creating your collection, do you think about like, I've got to think about my materials, the cost, that kind of thing. Does that kind of go into your creation or like what you're going to do you think?
It does. So for me, it definitely does. And I'll tell you why it does for me. I live 3 gazillion miles away from all of you. And so I have to think about, what am I painting size-wise that is, one, easy for me to post, easy for you guys to hang or put in a frame. So I have to think about those sorts of things. For those of you that are in the States where you've got options of whether you paint on paper and what size, because it's a standard size for you guys, or canvas, because you've got, you know, other shipping options where it's cheaper to get the canvas to each other. It opens up the world to you a little bit more for size-wise, if that makes sense. So look, it's something that I have to consider, because, you know, if I painted like an angel size painting and put it up for sale, I mean, you know what that deal is, Christy, right? It's hard to ship a large canvas, let alone geography across the world.
Well, and I think, I don't know if I mentioned in class, but I had gotten pricing on, you know, 4 by 5 foot going down to Miami, and it was $1,300. I mean, they were packing it, and I guess in a way they have to, especially with an expensive piece of artwork, but it's really, you know, it's very interesting, because as I look at this, it really, you know, as I was creating all of my collection, which was really big and really big, you know, it's just like the number of them.
It was big and bigger.
And really, I mean, and it was interesting because, and I realize this now, the space told me what to do. Because it's so, you know, it's 16-foot ceiling. So I couldn't create.
So when you're in your studio now, you're going to think about, what size am I going to paint now? What is, and you know, there's some questions that you need to answer. Christy, we might come on camera for this question. I really like to go back to this question, but I'd really like to see you guys. So if there's any other Excel questions, can I take those now so that I can stop sharing and see your beautiful faces?
Yes, Ali. Are you going to keep the supplies column on the...
Do you guys want it?
I would like it, personally.
Look, if you don't want it, literally come down to where that tab is. Again, left click. Actually, you don't need to left click. If you just go right, you can delete that tab if you don't want it. Again, if you want another one, just put it in, right click, rename. If you don't want it, just push delete and that goes. But yes, I'll leave it in, because I actually think it's, I buy my supplies from only one art store here, because I like to go feel, touch, smell, stroke, you know how that is. But where you guys have got lots of choices around you, it actually would be quite interesting to see where you buy your supplies. And then also, you know, you can take a screenshot of that when you go to Michael's and go, wow, at Hobby Lobby, I only paid $2.60 for that brush. How much is it at Michael's? You know, it might help you make some decisions. Or if something comes on special, you know what you've paid for it previously. I'm happy to leave it in. If you don't want it, you know how to take it out.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, Ali.
Yeah, I've saved that now. Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so I can come back to you. There you are. Now I can see you. So Christy, let's go back to your question, because it's actually a bigger question. So now that you're not going to be selling out of the gallery, you actually need to think about, what size am I going to paint? And it comes down to a number of things, right? It comes down to, what size am I going to paint? How easy is it going to be to post? How am I going to post it? And what's going to be the cost? You know, you need to think about that. When I start painting a size, the very first thing I do is I take it, I pack it, I throw some extra watercolor sheets of paper in to cover, you know, the bits and pieces you pop in with it. It might be a postcard, it might be a thank you note, it might be, you know, a couple of layers of paint. So I normally put a few sheets of watercolor paper in to give it some extra weight, and I take it to the post office and I ask them to price it for me. sending to US, to UK, to all the various places, and I get them to price that for me at the post office. And they're great. They don't mind doing that at all. And then I know exactly what I'm dealing with the cost of postage. And then I build that into my sale price. So when I list something, it includes international track postage, which I think makes sense for me being in Australia.
Oh, so
I don't say it includes free postage, because it's not free postage, but I've included, so I add that onto my sell price and I include international postage.
I think that makes a big difference as a buyer.
Yeah.
I think it makes a huge difference when you're looking at the price and you know everything's included.
That's right.
Yeah, because I have bought from, I want to say other countries when I'm talking Canada, but but that adds $11.
Yeah.
Or if I buy something from California, sometimes that adds $11. And if you haven't psychologically added that in already, you're
That's
like,
right.
Because
then there's no surprises. When you go to the checkout and you're looking at the cost of shipping, there's no surprises at that point.
Yeah, but I think that helps too, looking forward to when I sell something. It's just like, to already have it included. And
just remember to think about, when you're painting, how are you going to get this to the people? How are you going to ship that out? Yeah.
It's a big one.
I just lost a sale in an art shop I have some things in. I was down there, and it was a $75 piece. And the owner, she's one of two lovely women, and she'd said this woman really wanted it, but she was buying it as a gift, and she started to think about, how am I going to mail it? And so she said, I'm just really sorry I lost the sale for you. And I said, well, you can't control everything. But and that was an above average price for something selling in that shop. So first of all, I said, well, I'm tickled she wanted it. So I said, I'm not going to lower the price because I know there's somebody willing to pay that, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations. That's great. Another buyer will come along. It just wasn't meant to go with that person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. And look, don't feel overwhelmed.
It's such a consideration. Yeah.
Sorry, Christy.
Oh no, I just was saying it's such a consideration. It's sad that, art, it can be limiting depending on all that stuff, and then trying to, if the person doesn't want, we run into that now because retailers are starting to limit how to return, if we can return, people that used to be so flexible about it. And I think it's because of the shipping costs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's certainly a very interesting exercise. I was watching Amanda's large pieces during the week, and it was going to be an interesting exercise.
Mm-hmm. Well, she kept it to that 36 inches, which I think she said is, the kind of the limit where you're not getting into the astronomical shipping category.
Right.
So that might be my limits, sadly, if I'm going to ship.
Yeah, it's worth investigating before you start painting your next collection, Christy. Think about that as a conscious decision before you start creating, because then you know what you've got. I can see. So then what your limits are, right?
I can't stop.
I think it was so helpful seeing her do that, but us having this talk, but then also seeing Amanda's reel during the week and saying how she had those two huge ones and they were pickup only. But that was why. I mean, I don't think it is talked about enough. So you are shocked.
Yeah, that's right.
Drew, was Amanda's pickup only? I'm sorry.
No, her two super large ones. She had two really, really big ones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The 48.
That they were. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, what that does then, though, is that limits your buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you're only relying on local support for those. Mm-hmm. So for the sake of us that are selling online, Instagram, Etsy, wherever we're selling through our own websites, You know, we've got to think about the purchaser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sweet. All
Well,
right.
and
Well,
Allie, a lot of art, you know, if you're watching a lot of artists that are, you know, have been producing for a long time, a lot of, you know, many times they're like, this is about you. It's, you know, you have to create what you're going to create, but it, you know, it's changed because you have to really think about that, because it's almost like your artwork would be, you know, the shipping would kill
yeah,
how much the artwork was. So it's really
absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I watch a lot of artists where they're, you know, painting and releasing collections. And I love looking at how they handle postage, what they say about it and how they handle it. And it is interesting that everybody does it in slightly different way, a slightly different way. But my view on it, thinking about the purchaser, is I want to, one, make it easy for them, and two, have it so that there is no surprises, that what they pay is what they pay. So the listing price is what they pay. And of course, Instagram makes it easy to do that because you can put the price and you can put the details. Etsy, you know, Etsy, because of the way it's set up and you've got to either include shipping or not, or price it or not, you know, it's just a matter of getting comfortable with how to maneuver your way around the Etsy settings so that you can be clear about what's included and what's not. But my suggestion would always be to include shipping, add it onto your price and say that shipping is included in your listing price, because it's a game changer for me. Every time I go into Etsy, I either search for Australian stores so I know that I can get it no trouble, because there's nothing worse if you go, you know, and I find, like, I was actually looking for a rainbow bead and pearl necklace to buy for Emily. And I went in and there were some beautiful ones out of Poland and, you know, and they were very reasonably priced. And I'm like, oh, that's gorgeous. I would love it. Well, shipping was 3 times the price of the necklace. And I'm like, wow, really? And so that stopped me purchasing. And yet there was another one out of the UK. And yes, it was slightly more expensive than the Poland listing price. And it was included, but then they didn't ship to Australia. Man, you know, this is Australia, people. It's not like we're, you know, deepest, darkest Timbuktu. So it is interesting, and it made me think, the person that listed it, do they not take enough time when they're listing their item to make sure that it is available for sale worldwide, and that their listing and their price and what they're including is appropriate? Because I'm like, why doesn't she sell to Australia? Interestingly, New Zealand was on the list, but not Australia. So I'm thinking that that was an oversight on her part. And yes, I've messaged her. I messaged her to say, do you post to Australia? So, you know, it's Etsy, it's worth taking your time and paying attention, particularly when you're, you know, adding in all your shipping details to make sure that you get it right. And then go check your listing. Make sure it's how you want it to be. Obviously, when you're selling on Instagram, it's so much easier because it's free type and you can just type what the deal is. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording.